checklist that makes up the 52 pages. And I think about the checklist is about, Ugochi, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 14 pages. Essentially what is 14 pages. And so, but it even baffles me, you know, the conversation around should we read it? You should read it.
I did it.
But first of all, it's readable. It's a friendly text. I don't know, you know, so for someone like me who is also in the world of special needs and inclusion, that is a friendly text to read. Colorful, it's spacey, the kind of content is great. And to be honest, I have to commend the federal government for even pulling this together. The fact that they work with various stakeholders, thought through the process, you know, to come to the combination of the Federal Ministry of Education and the Education in Emergencies Working Group, and I can't remember the last one. There were 3 of them, but you know, the healthy collaboration. So read it. For business that stake, we are talking about implications, cost implications, cost and revenue implications, right? And imagine that you don't read it, then how would you even know how to navigate, you know, how to deal with the cost perspective? If you look at the, I mean, I've been reading and I've been enjoying reading it because, you know, I'm really glad that there's documents like this coming off of Nigeria. But if you look at the sort of like in dealing with physical distancing, if you look at the examples from platooning to staggered attendance to, I mean, different things, you see that there is for every school, believe me, whether it's low income, mid income, high income, for every school, it's possible for you to plan with that sort of like, with those examples that they've shared. Because a lot of people have to say, how do I go about this? You know, with the Monday, Wednesday, Friday attendance and all of those things, they're going to definitely affect you in terms of cost, because some of the things that will happen is likely, and if we do implement this, it's likely that attendance will not look the same. And that means that if your attendance is not going to look the same on the alternate days that children come in, if that's what you'll be implementing, on those alternate days, you may have to look at your costs. School fees wise, parents will be asking you some questions. Well, if my child is not going to come to school on Tuesday and Thursday, for instance, why do I have to pay the same school fees I've been paid before? That's revenue issues. But I wish there was a little more guidance in terms of this cost and implication, cost and revenue implication for especially the private sector, because this is largely tailored around what government can do for the public sector, for their schools. I wish there was an opportunity for another group to come together like this to say, you know what, low income schools, this is private sector. Okay, so this is a private sector example. This is what you can do. Because there will be cost implications there. You would need to decide what sort of attendance is going to happen in my school, and that's definitely going to affect earnings.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Awesome.
The internet. So, Titi, get set. I'm coming to you. Let me go straight to Ronke Posh. Ronke Posh, I would like to ask you, as someone who works directly in the school space, right? I'm sure that you would have probably had a clue as to the cost implication in terms of the guidelines that they are putting in place. How does this affect you as a school business? Does it necessarily mean that it might lead to probably a spike in your fees? Because of course, incidental costs leading to, take for example, schools have to do compulsory wash area, all those things like that. These things are cost, and already people are thinking of the economic crunch, the burden of the COVID-19. How does that translate to that as a school? What are your thoughts on that?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Isayo. With regards to the costs, I can only speak for myself. Like I always say, it's a bit different. And just like with school fees and salaries, I didn't say much about it because I believed that there should have been projections. But if I said that online, it will seem as if I'm speaking from my own strong point. And I'm thankful that my teachers have been paid full salary with the guidelines. Number one, we're talking about people should read it. If we're begging educators to read a document, are they in the right profession? I'm bothered. I'm really bothered. It has been said that if you want to hide any secret from a black man, that you should put it in the book. Isn't it evident now that it's true? Well, we don't want to read. Okay, you don't want to read. You can translate it online. It will talk to you. You can go online. It's in the media. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. You just put it on. It's everywhere. It's not something that is a secret thing. You don't want to, but you must be informed to make the right decisions. In terms of costs, we're still going to get to that point because I personally do not want my children back in school. I don't. I know a lot of schools want their children back so that they can start collecting school fees, but I do not want my own children back in school, and I do not want to send my own biological child back to school yet, because I do not believe it's safe to do so at the moment. So I would prefer that we continue online. And when I was on TV, on the media again, on sometime last week, I still said it, that if Slums to School could do 948 children with collaboration with Microsoft, children in the slums, with state-of-the-art equipment, learning online, what excuse do we have? When are we going to just take it seriously? We can get as many children as possible online if we can collect money by every means. Why can't we then get them to have online learning? We can. We just don't want to prioritize it in the right way. And that's the reality of it. So when it comes to cost, for us, cost will be what it has been for this last year because we want to stay at home. I have babies. What's the point of my kids coming to school? Will I social distance from a 9-month-old baby whose parents have gone to work? How will I change the diaper? When they're crying, I'll say sorry from a distance. I will tell preschoolers not to hug and play on the playground. You come, you stay in a bubble. You come on Monday, you come on Tuesday, you come on Wednesday. It makes no sense. It defeats the purpose of what school is. School is a place of social interactions. So for me, and I'm talking from my own area of the world and my own map of the world. I know that I'm not in certain areas. But for my own map of the world, I would rather my children stay at home.
Fantastic. You've touched a soft point, or how do I put it? A soft spot, not a soft point. A soft spot there. How do you social distance the 9 months? In fact, it conflicts with your service promise because at that level, you are expecting to deliver service that is experiential for that child. In fact, that child might end up being traumatized all through the day. You understand? I'm sure Titi is eager to say something about this, especially looking at the cost. Titi, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you a lot. I have to agree with Ronke Posh in saying that for my younger son that is in primary school, I would not want him to go to school based on the conditions that are currently being laid down. If your child has any underlying health concern, asthma and all those kind of things, wearing masks, so for me, I'll take the stance and say, for primary school children, for me, it's a no. But secondary school, older than are more matured, it makes sense. I looked at the guidelines, and to be honest, the guidelines are standard. The guidelines are fantastic, and I think the guidelines are on point. They covered every area, every issue, and they're really, really, in the direction we should go if we want to reopen school. But then again, I would like to look at it from the cost perspective. Even if public schools are not fee paying, there is someone that is going to carry the cost. I came across a very wonderful article written by the MD of Sin Forest, and then I will share the link with everybody. And he tried to, break down the cost and say that in the long run, Ronke's point of how do we move as much of them to online, because really that's where we should be going. And I will just try and break down some of the costs that he said. The first thing he's talked about was transportation. He said that we all know that with social distancing and all that, there has been a spike in the cost of transportation. So he said that if you take the new cost to, especially those that are going to public school, he took a wonderful estimate of saying, you know, let's work on an estimate of 20 million children that will be required to go back when school resumes. He says if you work on that estimate and say 10 million of them take public transport, and assume that there's a hike of 100 naira for those that take public transport, he says 100 naira times 10 million children is immediately 1 billion. Now the parents will be spending increase in transportation. We then go to, you know, water and sanitizers. I mean, these things are easy for big private schools, but when you look at low cost schools and then the public schools, there is a major cost element. So he looked at it and said, okay, if you take water and soap, assume the cost of water to them, because a lot of them don't have water. They will have to buy water, get or do borehole. He said, even if you take that cost of, you know, water and soap, you know, and multiply by the 20 million, that's already 70 million. He went on to talk about sanitizers and disinfectants. Remember, they said that you need to disinfect at least twice a day. You need to have sanitizers at the gates, at the classrooms, at the offices. Sanitizers are now like gold, you know, they're like an average of 1,000 naira now for the container, or an average size container, not to talk of disinfectant. The price has gone up. He says if you multiply that by 20 million children that would be going back to school, do you know how much that is? That is a billion, another billion naira. If you add face masks to it, assume that each child has reusable ones of 100 naira each, you know, that is 4 billion naira. If you add the cost of thermometers, which is currently about 20,000 naira. On an average, we'll need about 80,000 to take care of the 20 million children. That is 1.6 billion naira. I mean, when you add the cost of going back to school, whoever bears the cost, we're easily looking at, for a term, we're easily looking at close to 6 billion naira. The government might be able to bear that for the public school, but let's be honest, would they really be able to provide the quantities and the amounts that are needed for us to achieve that? That's serious, significant money. When you look at private schools, like I mentioned, the big private schools, the school fees is enough, really. If you're honest, the school fees will be enough to accommodate this additional cost. But I'm sure they should do some pushback to the parents. But let's look at those that are low income private schools. So how would they afford that? In the end, what a lot of them most likely do is they'll do a pushback. So they'll most likely tell every parent as you're coming, let your child come with 2 sanitizers, 2 soaps, and therefore face masks before they can come into school. Because that cost is not something that they'll be able to bear. Let's be honest. But that's even just from an expense perspective. The corresponding area is the revenue. Let's remember that on the average, even for private schools, I look at the class my son is in, they're currently 17 in their class. I don't think they're anywhere in their school that they're more than 20. But when I look at the class and I try to do a 2-meter social distancing, that automatically reduces it by almost a half. That's to be honest. It reduces the class size by half. And the school is already full as it is, so there's no place to put that half in. So the option is, are they going to tell us only half can come and increase the fees? I'm not sure anybody's ready to pay increased fees. Or how are they going to do it? Are they going to now say there's class in the morning and class in the afternoon? But if they do that, the implication is that would they need more teachers? Because I can't imagine that a teacher would teach 2 sets of children in a day. It's just too exhausting. One group of them will suffer. Either the morning people have the best of the teacher, and the afternoon session people just suffer. So that means there's additional teachers that the school needs to get. That's another cost implication. So it's really, honestly, it's really something. And I agree with Rhoda in saying that we need the private sectors to sit down. Let's come up with a generic, finance business template. Let's put in the figures. Let's look at it and then say, what's possible, from a cost and expense perspective. especially for the low income, the low income schools. I would go and say, let's try and push as many for the primary school online. The secondary school, I be more responsible. I can see them wearing masks. I wouldn't want them to, but I can see them, open with the mask. For me, my child going to primary school wearing mask is a complete no-no for me. For even 4 hours, it's a no-no for me as a parent. I think I will pause here and say it's a difficult one, but we just need to take it one step at a time.
Okay, so
Titi, I love that breakdown that you just did. But I used to do breakdowns like that until I started living in Nigeria. You did it the British way. You forgot to factor in corruption charges, inflation that will be in the book. You forgot all those ones.
Come on.
You just did it the normal time. So that cost you have just given is just a base. It's not the real cost. And when it comes to the teenagers in secondary school, I'm inclined to believe that it's going to be worse with them because they are hormonal. This is the time when they kiss and touch each other. So when they get back, that is what they're going to start doing. So that disease is still going to spread if they insist that those children should go back to school. So, and you mentioned that school fees should be enough in private school. And I just said,
You have done it better than I have to speak for the majority. We can tell the parents to come with 3 sanitizers, to come with nice soaps and disinfectants.
Everybody at Le Poche equips their child with sanitizers before they come to school. This has been even before now. They equip their children, but in the school, there's hand wash. You wash your hand. We have sanitizers and the likes. Yes, but were we going to be using the money to continue buying sanitizers? Have you seen preschoolers using sanitizers before? You need to see them. Can I have more? You think it's food they want to eat? Can I have more? Miss Roque, can I have some more? Well, what's your hand, please?
Oliver Twist experience, is it?
It's fun for them.
Okay, so let
Rhoda is saying something. Please, let's hear Rhoda.
Okay,
let's hold on to Ronke's thought on inflation and corruption. And look, that is something that we need to be very mindful of because there is almost all, I could speak, for almost all parents, their pockets have been deepened. Like there's less and less income generation by people generally. And so that whole concept of inflation and the corruption, look, the box that they used to take 100, I was asking somebody yesterday, the tray of tomato, when you want to make eggs, and you just want to say, okay, buy quick, fresh tomatoes. And then the tray of tomato is now 500. I started asking myself, wait a minute, why is it now 500? One small thing like this. And they said, the transport cost from bringing it from maybe the wherever north or wherever they're bringing it from. And I started asking myself, but is the dollar naira exchange affecting tomato? But you see, the truth is that, like Ronke said, the inflation will catapult into tomato, catapult into onions, egusi, transport, and even when it's not found out, there's nobody doing the mathematics, and parents do not generally have that kind of funds to go in because they are affected. Everything they are buying is now 100% or 200% increase. So that's a cost that we have not factored in.
Yes. So this is why one of the things I've been sharing very recently in my IG sessions with parents is how we all must work together. It's even written there in that guideline that we have to support what the government is doing. So yes, the government is saying that they are going to provide grants, they are going to try to finance this, but we need to ask ourselves this question: what if the government effort does not reach my side? If it doesn't reach my side, so how are we going to manage? And so we all need to work together, the private sector, the CSOs, individuals, PTAs, school owners. We can't leave it to just one party. One party would not be enough to manage this situation. That's the truth about it. Even if the government wanted to do it for all public and all private schools, it is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. So how are we going to support? For any decision that we are going to make, we must always keep the children at the forefront, bearing in mind that if we do not do what we are supposed to do, some children are going to be left behind. We do not want a situation where some children are left behind because of their socioeconomic status. So we've got to just organizations, maybe some organizations might have to make their CSR to be providing hand washing stations in schools. So if everybody begins to pitch in somehow,
safety check.
Yes, they are, but we cannot continue like that. Yes, they are, but we cannot continue like that. The gap is widening. We have to find a way to stop that gap from widening. So anything that we are all going to do together. Of course, but you see, I'm not even going to dwell on the fact that some things are not even working. Personally, I'm just thinking, how are we going to make what is left work somehow? So yes, the cost implication is there, and that is why I've been advising that nobody should see it as it's a school owner responsibility, or it's a parent responsibility, or it is our collective responsibility. So even for a lot of social impact professionals who are doing one project or the other, this is the time to pitch in. What I know is that the little would add up. If everyone is doing one little somewhere, somehow it's all going to add up to ensure that no child is left behind. Because the truth is, the gap is widening. We can't allow it to continue like this. Because years down the line, people are going to remember the effect of the pandemic on their lives. We must ensure that somehow that effect is positive. Somehow. We've just got to try somehow.
To jump in, what about government's role in price control and inflation? What about that at this time? This is why this conversation is happening, because yes, there might be social impact entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, whatever it is. How many can be reached? When we look at the sheer numbers, we're talking about over 20 million children, school children.
It's a lot.
You know, so government has a very important role to play in price control, inflation, and these are where people begin to say, okay, look, I said the other time that I was stranded somewhere, right? Let me tell you everyone that nothing increased price. The only thing that you will see happen is that they are not available. So what you need to do is to get out of your home very early in the morning and wait when they're stocking the shop, and you go and pick your hand sanitizer and you go and pick your whatever it is. The hand sanitizers were the same price. When it was $1, it was $1 throughout the pandemic. And that's what we talk about. That's what price control is. That's that's government's role. So yes,
that's government supposed to do that.
Fine. Yes, it's great to give us the guidelines. We love it. Thank you. But then, what is your role in
That is the collective effort we are talking about. That's the collective effort we're talking about, because the government has to do something. It's just like what happened when suddenly, when our borders were shut, they couldn't import masks and all those medical apparel from outside the country, and suddenly we had to rely on our own designers to provide it. So it's the same thing here. So government has a role to play, create an enabling environment, ensure that prices are not shooting off the roof. I remember when Farida of the Bookworm Cafe had to buy sanitizer. Her stuff even trended at the time, where the hand sanitizer was inflated to 19,000 something. And there was an outcry on social media, and of course, Consumer Protection had to swoop in, and that came out. So yes, when we're talking about collective effort, we're not excusing the government. They have effort. In fact, one of the things I really love about the document is the fact that for almost everything that is written there, and they say who is responsible, government agencies are listed. The rest of us are supporting what they are supposed to do. So this is actually a good platform to talk about it, keep mentioning that, yes, so your role is so and so. So even though we are going to try to support, you have a very strong role to play here. So we're talking about collective, we're not excusing anybody. Everyone has to bring something to the table.
I think it's
safety
very
check.
much.
Is it this support that you're talking about, safety check? Is it the same way we support with by having generators and water pumps and everything? Is that the support? Essentially, we are own local government. I want us to be realistic here. This support,
yes.
Is it the same way where we provide like
so one of the things, so one of the things,
we send our children to private school and we pay. Is that the support?
We are basically our own local government. Like I keep telling people, we provide the water, we provide everything. So
let us take it.
So you see, Mrs. Rockeport, so there is this thing I've been sharing with a lot of school owners. In fact, I still talked about it on Friday on an IG live session. And that is, you need to ask yourself, tell your amazing plans of how they are going. We have all these fantastic guidelines of how they are going to provide grants and all that. But we always need, at the top of our mind, we must say, What if the government does not get to me? Am I going to say I'm not going to do anything? No. So when we keep the children as a priority, we're like, okay, if they reach here, fine. But in the meantime, these are the things we can put in place. And PTAs and parents must work together. Nobody should feel is the school owner's responsibility or is the parent. So that's why I love one of the things you mentioned, that you guys have hand washing facilities in your school, you have sanitizers. But parents are also aware that their children should also be given sanitizer. So that is sharing responsibilities. And this is the time for school owners to be as honest and vulnerable with their, because everybody knows what is happening. There's no point trying to form like you have it under control when you know you really do not have it under control and you need support. And if you are able to be honest and transparent to your dealings, even the parents know that, okay, it's not easy for anyone anywhere. So how can we meet at a middle ground? And I think that is the fundamental thing here. We should keep asking ourselves, you know, when they say that when two elephants fight, who suffers? So we do not want the children to, but let's keep the children in sight. They are priority. What are the things we can do to ensure that we managed our own resources to make this thing happen? Then if the government gets here, fine. If they do not, fine, we're still fine. That is not saying that they shouldn't do what they are supposed to do. I remember you also mentioned that when there was a time Lagos State government came to your school to disinfect and all that. But you know that they probably didn't reach all the schools in Lagos. So it's also the same thing that might happen here. There might be that fantastic plan, but it might not get to every corner. Now, the corners it doesn't get to, what can we do? PTAs, parents, other supporting agencies and individuals, what can we do to ensure that somehow nobody is left behind?
All right.
I know people need to talk, but that PTA you mentioned, bear in mind that it has taken a new role in many schools. PTA in many schools now means WhatsApp group, Telegram group to fight the school. Just to put that on the side.
Okay. Can you guys hear me out? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
You can hear me because all of a sudden I don't know what happened. The fire seemed to have taken my audio away. So I'm going to ask you to come in a prophetic manner on this situation, right?
Okay.
So, Mr. Jude, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Yes.
I've been listening to the ladies, and they are really on fire.
And you don't dare meddle with ladies on fire, you know. So I would like us just to bring this down before I read the comment. Are we working with COVID-19 fact or fiction?
Aha! That is one big question we should be answering, because I think I like where we are coming from, and I really support it. We're also going to look at experts' advice and expert talk around the world. So most times, some of these things I will not say they are not realistic, but sometimes it can also be an agenda. And when you start working with an agenda, or start helping people push agendas, definitely there's a problem somewhere. So for these guidelines given to us by federal government, and you compare it to what is applicable to other parts of the world that suffered more than even Nigerians, or suffered more than what we have here, definitely you have to question some things that are put in place. Now, for the guidelines and for every other things that we'll be talking about, the best route to go is blending our kind of curriculum, our kind of learning, because that will work out perfectly for this situation. That is even the essence of blended learning. We cannot.
Hallelujah.
Rhoda was talking about parents complain. Is it Rhoda or Posh? She was complaining that parents will say, well, why my child came 3 days a week, so my school fees should be reduced. At this point in time, the cost is already spiked up, and whether your child come once a week or twice a week is still going to be more burden on the school, because they are going to be upgrading their facilities and all that. So school fees cannot even reduce; it can actually increase more. So at this point in time, that it's not necessary we come 20 days a week in school. We could have part-time session during school and other time session off school. The only people I'm worried about are the babies. But for primary school students, at this point in time, they can do with blended learning. Secondary school students, they can do with blended learning. College or university students, they can do with blended learning. At this point, this is the point in time we implement all the blended learning we have been training on about since donkey years. All the researches we have been talking about on blended. This is the time to implement blended learning. But I don't know why we want to go back to our old curriculum of face me, I face you, or face-to-face learning 20 days a week. This is the time to really put in practice what we have been talking about or what we have been training about when it comes to blended learning or when it comes to implementing technology into the curriculum.
Now, thank you so much. The prophet has spoken. So let's ask Eben. Eben, the creative person. Eben also has a first-hand engagement. I call him the creative grassroots mobilizer. So Eben, you house schools in schools. You have over 40-something WhatsApp group that you coordinate. And I'm sure you would have gotten feedback from a lot of people, anxiety in the air, concerns in the air, and a lot of cluelessness as well. Eben, so let's talk about these resumption guidelines, right? From a perspective of one who works with these people close and firsthand, what do you see in terms of transferring risk transfer? Do you think that because of course the numbers of schools out there is quite high? What's your take on that? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take comments, and I love the comments coming in. First and foremost, let me thank those who are joining us for the first time. I have the bell of blessing for joining us. Thank you for joining. All right. So,
that's an upgrade. That's an upgrade.
That's an upgrade, right? Technology innovation, right? Okay, so yeah. But I'm going to read some of these comments, and then probably anyone can answer. So I have one from Ayokpeju, and she's saying something here. She said, has anyone considered the possibility that the resumption guidelines are meant to serve as a deterrent?
Yeah,
so there you have it.
If they're supposed to be a deterrent, then it's not working. Because the reality is that people want to get back to school. Last week on TV, I was asked the question that, do I know about the school owners that have been looked for? by the government because they started school. The reality is we have this document and we're discussing it now. As you have spoken already, some people don't even want to read the document. And the thing is, whether we want to accept it or not, there are schools that are open right now, physically. So it's not about deterring. Well, even if they wanted it to deter people, it's not working because people want to eat. It's about value economy right now. So teachers are doing lessons. Schools, they are open. They're hiding in corners. They're doing it.
Yes.
So if it's supposed to be a deterrent, it's not working. That is just the reality of our country. People need to eat. They are at the bottom of the food chain and they need to survive. It's about survival now. If a school, if a school can turn their school to a chicken farm, then anything can happen. That's determined. It's not happening. It's all about survival. It's a war of the belly right now.
Okay.
Wow, the war of the belly. I think I need to post that.
There's nothing the government can do about that. There's nothing the government
truth
can
is that
do.
I don't know if government has the resources, to enforce. Because look at how many schools they are. They have the resources to go and do the assessment. Because that's the same thing with the open, registered to open thing that is happening. A lot of companies are registered, but they've never gotten anybody to come and visit them. So
to come and check them out.
Yeah, to come and check them. So do they even have the resources? Let's just look at the numbers of schools in Lagos.
What about the quality assurance agencies, the inspectorate, and all the directors?
They may not have enough manpower. We don't have enough. The problem, there's a disconnect between the plans and then the implementation. Who are the food soldiers that are going to ensure that these things get done?
Yeah.
So
even if we have the food soldiers, you can pay off the food soldiers. You are in Nigeria. What are we saying? I give you envelope.
You don't have data to support that claim.
Here is that we need to be serious. Government needs to be serious about how to implement the solutions. And the truth is that a lot of our people are struggling, and there is no monitoring mechanism that allows these things. If we are saying things like, do they have enough manpower? Guys, that is not something we should smile about. This is government's task. It's their role to have the right manpower to map out their country. They say, we're hearing, it's a nice catchphrase now. Do not waste a crisis. Everybody uses this. But it's true, we cannot waste this crisis. Now we have to think, what is the 2-year plan to scale remote learning, to scale blended learning? Because believe me, it must happen. That's what we need to do. What is the
no plans. That's the sad thing. No plans. No plans.
And these things are serious. How can you not have manpower to monitor the disseminable number of human beings, institutions? So we need data collection. What we need all of these things to work out, like a fine, I don't know, oiled,
Rhoda is living in Canada now.
What I'm saying, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is we now have to be serious, because that's what I'm saying.
Rhoda, we should have been serious 60 years ago.
No, I know.
So guys.
About. This is what we should be canvassing for. The guidelines are nice. Are they implementable in reality, as Ronke and everybody has said? It's not nice for us to sit down here and look, we're all documented out. There's tons of documents flying everywhere. Every time, that day I saw the policy on special needs and inclusion. It's all nice. All these things are nice, but we really need to get to a point where we now hold the government accountable for being transparent about things. Otherwise, we continue to have this conversation, and it is stressful, painful, just generally destructive for us. And there's just no pattern to growth, and we don't even just see it.
People are working. People are working. We will continue talking. The conversations are very important, and people are working. And there are models to follow. There are templates. Like I keep saying, if Slum to School could do it, then we can do it. There are templates. What is happening? We're not just having the conversations.
Yeah.
So let's take Obianuju's comment. She says the easiest way to navigate this honestly is via online learning. Sadly, we are not ready, and I mean this is Nigeria. We are not ready right now. We are looking for shortcuts. Godi is saying, okay, so I think we should have a tech
ready.
bill.
It's a choice.
We just need
we are ready. Look for the right.
We are ready. We just need it
guys,
to be done.
God is saying something. He's dissing me right now. He says, I think we should be ready for a tech bill. I'm not going tech. I'm going manual.
Bill.
That's where we work with the telecom companies to make it subsidizable for students. That's where everybody's work comes in. We work with the telecom. Work with telecom companies.
Yeah, that's because you're always sending WhatsApp messages now. EBEN, that one is your own. You're always up and down with your WhatsApp messages
We
to
need
15,000
to partner with telecom companies.
But you see, this thing about it being...
They have packages for schools. There is data package for school teachers. MTN, I know, have it.
Okay.
Yes. So you can go on their website. They have for school. You have so many teachers, you get so many gigs. So it's available, please.
Okay.
And even for certain sites, you can go to certain sites and you can visit them for free. You just need to do your research.
Okay. I know for certain sites, but for the data packages, it
was even said at Edbest. At Edbest, it was even said also. MTN was at Edbest, and they also said it.
MTN Ghana or MTN Nigeria?
MTN Nigeria. Why would it be Ghana?
I saw the Ghana. I saw the Ghana.
East Mark.
God is saying that my own children are not resuming till we have a clear direction about COVID. Then we are not ready for resumption. That says the Flourish Gate Global Consult. Government has the biggest role to play. Fumilola is saying, good morning, house. And then, of course, Flourish Gate is saying, government specified it's their responsibility and they should set out to do it. Are they ready? Then Ifyok is saying, there's the issue of corruption, security, inflation. Obviously, we cannot trust government to stand up to their responsibilities. Obianuju is saying, the part about grant is laughable. This is Nigeria. We all know how we go about it. Then, of course, okay, someone is asking a question. Is there any possible rubric for ensuring accessible online learning for public schools?
Jude has that answer.
Yes, that's what we're working on the ground to make sure that happens, because at this point in time, we don't really have a way of assessing learning generally, or we don't have a standard. So with the event of AI, with the event of machine learning, that could be put in place, but definitely investors have to be committed to that workflow.
Okay, so God is saying, is it possible for government to partner with internet service providers to provide free access to school portals? I think someone has answered that already.
Not all
then Basirat is saying, okay. So Basirat is saying, Mr. Jude, please bear in mind that though we may have been preaching blended learning, we weren't preaching that it should be done under these circumstances.
Yes. We weren't preaching that it should be done under these circumstances, but even if we had started something at that point, we would not be having so much problem with online learning. And mind you, There are some foreign countries, if you are registering on a school website, if you have like a school email, they'll give you some things free. So why can't we do that here? So it means all schools should at least have a website so that they can have access to these freebies that tech has to offer.
Okay.
This blended learning that we're going on about, there are different types of blended learning. And
Yes,
many schools have been blending. They may not be conscious of it because we're talking about the technology aspect of it. If you give a child homework or projects to do at home, you have already blended the learning. So it's not about technology. Blended learning has been there.
There's the SAM-R model. Have you seen that SAM-R model? That's so.
There's so many models. What I'm trying to say is that we are banging on this fancy word of blended learning, but we have been blending learning.
We have not been doing it to redefine our learning. We have just been at the substitution level. We have been at the substitution level, or at most augmenting level. We have not actually implemented it to redefine our education. That's the problem.
It's arguable, but it's not the topic for the morning. We'll get to it, but it's arguable.
Okay, so let's just quickly wrap up on that. So the Flourish Global Consult saying every state government has education departments in all local government areas. Government can get data on schools if they are ready. This is the good time to get information about schools.
In the north, there are schools that don't have, there are local governments that don't even have schools, which is, that's even another kind of worms. So the data is going to be challenging. There are local governments that have no schools.
So someone is saying to you, Obianuju is saying to Ronke Posh, at Ronke Posh, Slum to School works with donors that fund their work. This is not the same for a large percentage of low-cost schools.
Yes, I'm talking about what the government being able to use that model. I'm talking about the government being able to use that model.
You know,
then
if it's possible to do it, I'm saying it is possible to do it because they keep saying we're not ready. We are ready. That's my point.
Oh, okay.
You know,
so the excellence teacher is saying something here. She says the MTN free internet connectivity for teachers is true. I have access to it, but it doesn't last. I still have to buy data.
I was saying, I don't know if you can hear me. I was saying that there is an around the world that we can leverage on. There's an example around the world that you can leverage on. I know about a particular, so we can go about it local government levels. So local governments can partners can have this conversation with the data companies and collect the schools with the local government. Many countries are even in big countries that we know, you see local ISDs coming together to say, okay, in our county, we're going to be using Schoology, and Schoology is going to provide our parents with this amount of data and this and that. You know, these things are.
Okay, why is it possible, Rhoda? Is it possible? And this question is open to everybody in 60 seconds. Is it possible that we have our own, like EdVest, for example? Is it possible that we can push them to the fore and let that platform, since they've done remarkably well handling a lot of schools, can we put our weight behind EdVest, something like that, and push it as a national carrier or something? What's your take?
So EdVest, you know, I said very good, and you know, but when you say national, I wouldn't go that far. I would say let's segment it. You know, so there are a couple of players there. So there's EdVest, but then let's get them partnerships with the various local governments within particular areas. You know, because that's the capacity. But then it's the question of data cost as well. You know, who is going to, so that partnership needs to go to the LMS system, the data providers, and of course the government stakeholders. So it's just like, you know, it's a partnership. It's not, you know, their cost has to go down.
When you say we are ready, can you put a percentage compared to the government age population and schools? No, I cannot put a percentage, but if you can also give me a percentage of the reverse, that would really help. I'm not a statistician. I'm I'm an analyst here. I'm not a statistician at all. So when you say when we are ready, I'm saying we're ready, you're saying we're not ready. We're not ready, tell me why we're not ready. And tell me when we're ever going to be ready, when we're in a state of emergency. That would really help.
Okay, so finally, Ronke Push is so real. We shouldn't be begging educators to read. If, as an educator, you need cajoling to read, then you don't belong to.
Thank you, Ms. Nana.
I think that it's a powerful topic that will continue tomorrow. I would like to thank those of our guests. Those joining us for the first time today, I'd like to thank them. I'd like to appreciate them for the comments, for their questions. And we believe that, like Ronke said, and my colleagues also said, we have to keep the conversation going. Obviously, we have to keep the conversation going. So in one last word, I would like us to just say our closing remarks. 20 seconds each, and just say your goodbyes. Tomorrow we are here again, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time. So I'm going to start with EBEN, then I'll go to Jude, and then I'll go to Rhoda, go to Ronke, go to Safety, and then end with DP. So EBEN, last word.
Okay,
Okay.
for me, I always bank on the tech solutions to the school guideline, and it's much easier to implement with tech. That's my own take. It's much easier to implement with tech. So if we have to take it hook, line, and sinker, we might be waiting donkey years, but it's much easier to implement with technology. Thank you.
Okay.
Am I next?
No, that's Safety, I'm sure. Okay. Safety Chick, where are you? Let's have Ronke. Let's have you.
I'll say that clarity comes in the doing. There's no state of perfection. Clarity comes in the doing. Let us start this online learning. Even if a child cannot have one device, some children in a community can social distance and use a device. We must not say, there will never be a time when we're going to be ready. There's never going to be a time in our own lifetime that we are going to be ready. We must keep doing, and we get better as we keep doing. That's what I'm going to say. Waiting for a time when we are ready and everything's going to be perfect, we're going to wait forever. Even in Canada, developed countries, they have children that have devices. They have children that have no devices, and they loan them devices. They will steal our own, you would say, yes. But there are also children that they tell them to go to certain place hotspots, like maybe a fast food restaurant, and they have Wi-Fi for them to use. In extreme case, still in this Canada, because I read a publication from them, they will still have children come to school, social distance. They give them lunch and learning packs. That is still blending their learning. We must keep doing, not wait for a state of perfection. It will never come, at least not in our own lifetime.
All right. So, Rhoda?
My question is, what is our lowest hanging fruit? And our lowest hanging fruit could look a bit like, certain offline solutions that are in the world of remote/blended learning. So I know that audio lessons by teachers, and you can route it through a USB phone so that feature phones can use that USSD and have a dial-in where a teacher is helping a child understand a particular concept or the concepts of the week. And that is on one solution. One of the things that we do very well at Bridge, and I like to say I'm so proud of our organization, is some of these solutions that are already existing. And it just takes government's willingness, the transparency, and the accountability to pull these things through. So there are many solutions out there. But what we need now is actual serious piloting programs so that we can know what works, learn from it, get the feedback, re-implement, and then scale. There are ways to go around the project. There's a work plan, there's a workflow for it. We now need to be serious. Offline solutions look like the best for us. There are more people using feature phones, that is Palasa phones, in our communities than smartphones, but there are solutions for feature phones. So we need to look at these things and be serious about implementation. We need to be serious about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Titi, over to you.
They've come up with the standards is fine, but really what we need is the implementation. So what I would say is, let's put timelines to activities. Let's start doing. They talked a lot about training of teachers. Let's something just start happening. Let's have deadlines. Let's have let's have an implementation plan. I would take Rhoda's cue and say break it down to smaller groups. Let's something just start. Let's see what works. Let's do, and then we'll keep reiterating as we go along.
Awesome. So we've come to the end of today's show, and it's been an interesting one. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the comments, and
thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to my able colleagues. It's been fun today.
Yeah.
Prophet, we need to see your face, please. You're not a Catholic priest.
You see that?